The sound of keyboards clicking echoed through the Coronado Naval Special Warfare Command Center as Lieutenant Commander Jake Hurricane Morrison stepped into the operations room at 14:30 hours. 57 monitors displayed real-time intelligence feeds from the Middle East, tactical maps blinked with red zones, and communication channels buzzed with encrypted chatter from active deployments worldwide. Morrison paused when he spotted the woman seated at Terminal 7, a station classified for senior intelligence analysts only. Long neon blue hair spilled over her shoulders like an electric waterfall, contrasting sharply with her gray contractor uniform that bore no rank insignia. Her porcelain skin glowed under the blue light from multiple monitors, defined cheekbones creating shadows that made her look more like a fashion model than military personnel. Well, Morrison's voice cut through the electronic hum like a blade through silk. Who exactly gave you access to that terminal, sweetheart? 28 personnel in the command center turned their heads. SEALs, intelligence officers, communications specialists, all witnesses to the confrontation about to unfold. The woman, Madison Cross according to her contractor badge, didn't look up from screens showing classified satellite imagery. I asked you a question, Princess. Morrison stepped closer, his 6'4" frame towering over her seated position. That's a restricted terminal. You look like you belong at Starbucks, not analyzing operational intelligence. Madison's fingers paused on the keyboard. Winter blue eyes lifted slowly, meeting him with an expression of complete calm. Terminal access was properly authenticated, sir. Morrison laughed, a loud theatrical sound designed for the audience. Sir, you think calling me sir makes this legitimate? Let me guess. Daddy got you this contract through political connections? But in exactly 18 minutes, when that gray uniform tears and exposes what lies beneath, Morrison would understand that he had publicly challenged someone whose clearance level outranks every person in the command center, including the base commander. The tension in the room thickened as Morrison circled Madison's terminal like a predator sizing up prey. His combat boots clicked against the polished concrete floor, each step deliberate and intimidating. The other personnel exchanged glances, some smirking at what they assumed would be quick entertainment, others shifting uncomfortably at the obvious mismatch. Madison continued typing, her professional keyboard grip revealing muscle memory that spoke of thousands of hours at similar stations. Her fingers moved with the efficiency of someone who had spent years navigating classified systems, each keystroke purposeful and confident. The subtle way she positioned her hands, the automatic spacing of her fingers, these were details lost on the audience but would later prove significant. Ma'am, perhaps I can help clarify the situation. Staff Sergeant Sofia Rodriguez approached from the communications bay, her olive green uniform crisp and her black hair pulled back in a regulation bun. At 27, Rodriguez had earned her position through relentless competition in a male-dominated field, and she wore her authority like armor. Contractor access to classified terminals requires specific authorization levels. Rodriguez's intervention wasn't born of helpfulness. It was territorial marking. The presence of another woman in what she considered her domain triggered competitive instincts honed through years of proving herself worthy of respect among elite warriors. Madison's response came without looking away from her screens. Authorization Protocol 77 Alpha was authenticated at 1300 hours through JSOC channels. The specificity of her answer gave Rodriguez pause. Protocol 77 Alpha wasn't common knowledge. It required clearance levels that most contractors never approached. But Rodriguez had built her career on never backing down from challenges, especially from civilians who threatened the established hierarchy. Morrison sensed his audience and decided to escalate. Listen here, Barbie. I don't care what paperwork you waved around. This is a SEAL command center, not some corporate office where you can bat your eyelashes and get whatever you want. Can you feel that tension building when you know something massive is about to explode? I'm genuinely curious. Where are you watching this incredible story unfold from today? And drop your location in the comments, because I love seeing how these tales of hidden warriors connect people globally. The insult hung in the air like smoke from a fired weapon. Several junior personnel shifted uncomfortably, recognizing that Morrison had crossed from professional questioning into personal attack territory. But others nodded approval. This was how they maintained standards, how they protected the integrity of their elite brotherhood. Madison finally turned in her chair, winter blue eyes meeting Morrison's gaze with unsettling steadiness. Lieutenant Commander Morrison, Your concerns are noted. However, my presence here falls within authorized parameters for ongoing operations. The use of his rank and name without introduction sent a ripple through the watching crowd. How did she know his identity? Morrison felt the first flicker of uncertainty but pushed it aside, doubling down on aggression to mask his confusion. Ongoing operations? Morrison's laugh carried less confidence than before. Lady, the only operation you should be concerned with is finding the exit. This isn't a game, and classified intelligence isn't something you play with while getting your nails done. Petty Officer Williams, barely 24 years old, and still new enough to question rather than simply follow, watched from his position near the communications array. Something about the woman's composure struck him as unusual, not the nervous defensiveness of someone caught where they shouldn't be, but the calm confidence of someone who belonged exactly where they sat. Tech Sergeant Thompson emerged from the weapons systems bay, drawn by the commotion. At 31, Thompson had earned his position through encyclopedic knowledge of every piece of military hardware in the American arsenal. His expertise had saved lives in 3 different combat zones, and his technical competence was respected throughout the command structure. "What's the situation here?" Thompson's voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to being the smartest person in any room discussing military technology. Morrison gestured dismissively toward Madison. "Just explaining to our visitor that classified systems aren't appropriate for civilian contractors with pretty blue hair." Thompson studied Madison's screens, noting the complexity of the satellite imagery analysis she had been conducting. The overlays showed tactical assessments that would challenge experienced intelligence officers, yet she navigated them with apparent ease. "Ma'am, those are some pretty sophisticated threat assessments you're running," Thompson said, his tone more curious than confrontational. "Mind if I ask about your technical background?" Madison's fingers continued moving across the keyboard as she responded. "Military systems architecture, satellite intelligence interpretation, and tactical analysis protocols. Standard skill set for this assignment." Thompson frowned. The terminology she used was precise, not the vague generalizations typical of contractors trying to sound knowledgeable. She had referenced specific technical frameworks that weren't widely taught outside specialized military programs. "Standard skill set," Thompson repeated slowly. "And where exactly did you acquire expertise in military systems architecture?" "Various training programs over the past 8 years," Madison replied, pulling up a detailed weapons vulnerability assessment that made Thompson's eyebrows rise. "Each assignment builds on previous experience." The assessment on her screen showed weaknesses in enemy armor configurations that Thompson himself had only recently learned about through classified briefings. This information wasn't available to standard contractors, yet she navigated it as easily as reading a newspaper. Morrison, sensing his authority slipping, decided to reassert control through more direct confrontation. 8 years? You don't look old enough to have 8 years of anything, much less classified military experience. What are you, 22, 23? 26, Madison answered simply, her attention returning to the complex data streams flowing across her monitors. Chief Carter approached from the security station, his 40-year-old face showing the skepticism of someone who had spent 2 decades protecting classified information from unauthorized access. Carter's job was to ensure that every person in the command center belonged there, and the presence of an unknown contractor at a restricted terminal triggered every professional instinct he possessed. "Ma'am, I need to verify your security clearance level," Carter announced, his tone official and non-negotiable. "Protocol requires confirmation of authorization for Terminal 7 access." Madison reached into her pocket and produced a security card that she slid toward Carter without breaking her concentration on the screens. The card bore official markings but was unlike any contractor identification Carter had seen before. Carter scanned the card through his verification device, expecting to see standard contractor clearance levels. Instead, his screen displayed security codes that made him frown and run the scan a second time. "That's unusual," Carter muttered, studying the readout more carefully. Morrison leaned over Carter's shoulder. "What's unusual about it? Just show her the door already." Carter's expression grew increasingly puzzled as he attempted to access the full security profile associated with Madison's clearance. His system kept hitting authorization walls that suggested her access level exceeded his own verification capabilities. Morrison pulled out his secure tablet to verify Madison's credentials through his own command access, relying on advanced military-grade encryption technology that protected sensitive operational data. These specialized devices featured enhanced processing power designed specifically for classified environments where standard tablets would be inadequate. "This is ridiculous," Morrison declared, frustration creeping into his voice. "Carter, what's taking so long? How hard is it to verify one contractor's paperwork?" Rodriguez moved closer, her competitive instincts fully engaged. Maybe the question isn't about paperwork. Maybe the question is why someone with no military bearing thinks she can waltz into our command center and act like she belongs here. The attack was calculated. Rodriguez had identified what she considered Madison's weakest point and struck directly at it. Military bearing was something you earned through blood, sweat, and sacrifice. It wasn't something you could fake or buy your way into. Madison's response came without defensiveness or anger. Military bearing is demonstrated through professional competence and mission focus, not through displays of aggression toward colleagues. The rebuke was gentle but unmistakable, and Rodriguez felt the sting of being corrected by someone she considered inferior. Her jaw tightened as she prepared a sharper response. "Colleagues?" Rodriguez's voice rose slightly. "Lady, we're not colleagues. We're warriors who earned our place here through blood and sacrifice. You're a civilian contractor who somehow talked her way past security." Williams watched the exchange with growing unease. The woman, Madison, hadn't raised her voice, hadn't responded with the anger that Rodriguez was clearly trying to provoke. Instead, she maintained focus on her work while fielding increasingly personal attacks with professional calm that seemed almost military. Thompson continued studying the technical work displayed on Madison's screens, his expert eye catching details that troubled him. The satellite imagery analysis showed understanding of the tactical vulnerabilities that went beyond what most contractors would know. More concerning, her assessments were more accurate than some he'd seen from experienced military analysts. "Ma'am," Thompson said carefully, "some of the tactical insights in your assessment they're quite sophisticated. Where exactly did you develop expertise in enemy armor weaknesses?" Madison highlighted a section of her analysis without looking away from the screens. "Field experience in operational theaters provides practical knowledge that supplements technical training." Thompson's frown deepened. Field experience in operational theaters wasn't something contractors typically possessed. That phrasing suggested direct exposure to combat zones, which would be highly unusual for someone in her apparent position. Colonel Hayes entered the command center from his briefing room, drawn by the unusual commotion. At 42, Hayes commanded respect through 2 decades of distinguished service and a reputation for maintaining discipline in his command. He had little patience for disruptions to operational efficiency. "What's the situation here?" Hayes demanded, his voice cutting through the multiple conversations. Morrison straightened to attention. "Sir, we have an unauthorized contractor accessing classified systems at Terminal 7. I was attempting to resolve the security breach." Hayes studied the scene. Multiple personnel gathered around one workstation, obvious tension in the air, and work productivity grinding to a halt, while his people focused on drama instead of mission requirements. "Security breach?" Hayes directed his attention to Carter. "Chief, what's the status on this contractor's authorization?" Carter looked uncomfortable. "Sir, her clearance card shows authorization, but I'm having difficulty accessing her full security profile. The system indicates her access level may exceed my verification capabilities." Hayes felt irritation building. Administrative complications were exactly the kind of bureaucratic nonsense that interfered with operational readiness. Then get someone with higher access to verify her clearance and let's get back to work. Morrison sensed an opportunity to demonstrate leadership initiative. "Sir, with respect, this individual clearly doesn't belong in a classified environment. Perhaps the most efficient solution would be to escort her out while verification proceeds through proper channels." Hayes considered the suggestion. It would eliminate the disruption and restore order to his command center. He could deal with any administrative fallout later, but right now he needed his people focused on their actual responsibilities. "Ma'am," Hayes addressed Madison directly, "I'm going to have to ask you to step away from that terminal until we can properly verify your authorization to be here." Madison's fingers paused on the keyboard for the first time since the confrontation began. She turned to face Hayes, her expression remaining calm despite the escalating pressure from multiple authority figures. "Colonel Hayes," she said quietly, "my work here directly supports ongoing operational requirements. Interrupting this analysis could compromise mission effectiveness." Hayes felt his patience wearing thin. A contractor was now lecturing him about mission effectiveness in his own command center. The presumption was stunning, and it activated his instincts to restore proper hierarchy immediately. "Ma'am, I don't know who you think you are, but this is my command center. When I give an instruction, it gets followed without debate." The confrontation had reached its tipping point. Hayes had invoked command authority. Morrison was pushing for physical removal. Rodriguez was challenging Madison's right to be present, and Carter was struggling with security verification that suggested something more complex than a simple contractor access issue. Madison looked around the room at the faces watching her, some hostile, some curious, some uncomfortable with the escalating tension. For a moment, her winter blue eyes showed something that might have been resignation, as if she were making a difficult decision about how much longer to maintain her current position. If you're feeling that same mix of anticipation and frustration I am right now, let me know in the comments what you think is really going on here. Your insights always add such depth to these stories, and I'm curious what details you're picking up. Master Chief Garcia emerged from his corner position, where he had been observing the situation with the sharp eyes of someone who had spent 3 decades evaluating people and situations. At 52, Garcia had served with enough warriors to recognize something that the younger personnel were missing. Madison's breathing pattern had remained controlled throughout the confrontation, not the shallow, rapid breathing of stress, but the measured rhythm taught in advanced stress management courses. Her posture showed no defensive tension, despite being surrounded by critics. Most telling, her situational awareness remained perfect. She tracked every person's position without obvious surveillance behavior. Garcia stepped forward. "Ma'am, might I ask what specific operational requirements your analysis supports?" Madison turned her attention to Garcia, and for the first time since the confrontation began, her expression showed something approaching acknowledgement of an equal. "Master Chief, the analysis involves threat assessment for upcoming Pacific Theater operations. Timeline sensitivity requires completion within the next 2 hours to support mission planning." Garcia nodded slowly. Her response had been respectful to his rank, specific about operational requirements, and demonstrated understanding of Pacific Theater significance. These weren't details a random contractor would know or use correctly. Morrison sensed that Garcia's involvement was shifting the dynamic in ways he didn't like. "Master Chief, with respect, this individual has refused to comply with direct orders from Colonel Hayes. We need to maintain proper security protocols." Garcia's experienced eyes moved between Morrison and Madison, noting details others had missed. Madison's automatic deference to proper rank structure, her natural use of military time references, her unconscious adoption of military posture even while seated, these were behaviors ingrained through years of service, not learned through civilian contractor training. "Lieutenant Commander Morrison," Garcia said carefully, "might be worth getting all the facts before proceeding with removal." Hayes felt the situation slipping away from simple resolution. What should have been a straightforward security issue was becoming complicated by competing assessments from his personnel. "Chief Carter, I want that verification completed immediately. Get whoever you need to access her full security profile, but I want answers in the next 5 minutes." Carter began making calls to higher-level security verification offices, trying to find someone with clearance sufficient to access Madison's complete records. Each call transferred him to someone else, and each transfer suggested that her authorization level was more complex than standard contractor access. Thompson continued studying Madison's technical work, now with Garcia peering over his shoulder. The tactical assessments showed an understanding of enemy capabilities that was both current and accurate. More intriguingly, the analysis methods matched advanced techniques used by elite military units for real-world operations. "Ma'am," Thompson said, "the vulnerability assessments you're running, they're using methodology I've only seen in specialized military training. Where did you learn these analysis techniques?" Madison's hands moved across the keyboard, bringing up additional data streams. Various training programs provide different analytical frameworks. Integration of multiple approaches produces more comprehensive threat assessments. Thompson exchanged glances with Garcia. Her answer was technically correct, but avoided revealing the specific source of her training. In Thompson's experience, people who deflected questions about their background usually had reasons for maintaining privacy about their qualifications. Rodriguez, frustrated by her inability to provoke Madison into an emotional response, decided to escalate her attack. "You know what I think? I think this is all an act. I think you're some political appointee's daughter playing dress-up in a military environment, pretending to understand things you've only read about in books." The insult was designed to cut deep, questioning not just Madison's competence, but her integrity and authenticity. Rodriguez expected anger, defensiveness, or at least some emotional reaction that would prove her point about civilian weakness. Instead, Madison simply nodded acknowledgement. "Your assessment is noted, Staff Sergeant Rodriguez." The calm acceptance of the insult somehow made it feel hollow and ineffective. Rodriguez had thrown her best punch, and Madison had absorbed it without flinching, maintaining a professional demeanor that made Rodriguez look petty and unprofessional by comparison. Williams found himself increasingly uncomfortable with the direction of the confrontation. Madison hadn't done anything wrong that he could identify, yet she was being subjected to increasingly personal attacks from multiple sources. His instinct for fairness was being challenged by peer pressure to go along with the dominant narrative. Morrison decided to end the stalemate through direct action. "Enough discussion. Ma'am, you need to step away from that terminal immediately. If you refuse to comply voluntarily, I'll escort you out personally." Madison looked up at Morrison, studying his face with an expression that seemed almost evaluative, as if she were measuring something about his character or decision-making capability. "Lieutenant Commander," she said quietly, "are you certain that course of action serves the best interests of operational security?" Morrison felt challenged by the question. Was she suggesting that he didn't understand operational security in his own command center? "Ma'am, I'm certain that unauthorized personnel accessing classified systems represents a security threat that requires immediate resolution." Madison nodded, as if accepting the logic of his position. "I understand your perspective." Hayes watched the exchange with growing impatience. Administrative delays were costing operational time, and his command center was becoming a theater for personality conflicts instead of a professional work environment. Carter finished his latest call and approached Hayes with a troubled expression. "Sir, I've contacted 3 different security verification offices. Each one indicates that accessing this individual's full security profile requires authorization that exceeds standard verification protocols." Hayes felt his frustration spike. "What does that mean, Chief?" "Sir, it means her clearance level appears to be classified above my access level. I can't complete verification without involving higher command authority." Morrison seized on this information. "Then we remove her now and sort out the paperwork later. Better to err on the side of security than risk compromising classified operations." Garcia stepped closer to Madison's workstation, studying her technique as she continued working, despite the surrounding controversy. Her navigation of complex classified systems showed familiarity that came from extensive experience, not recent training. "Ma'am," Garcia said quietly, "would you mind sharing how long you've been working with these particular intelligence analysis systems?" Madison's eyes met Garcia's with what seemed like recognition of his genuine professional interest rather than hostile interrogation. "I've been working with various versions of these systems for approximately 6 years, Master Chief. Each upgrade cycle brings new capabilities, but the core functionality remains consistent." Garcia nodded thoughtfully. 6 years of experience with classified intelligence systems would require sustained high-level clearance and ongoing mission assignments. That wasn't typical contractor work. It suggested military or specialized agency background. Thompson had been analyzing the specific data Madison was processing and realized that her assessment involved current operational intelligence about threats in areas where American forces were actively deployed. This wasn't historical training data or simulated scenarios. This was real-time tactical intelligence. "Ma'am, the threat data you're analyzing, it appears to be current operational intelligence. Are you supporting active mission planning?" Madison highlighted several data points on her screen. "The analysis supports decision-making for operations scheduled within the next 72 hours. Accuracy and timeline are critical for personnel safety." Thompson felt a chill of realization. If Madison was supporting actual mission planning involving personnel safety, then interrupting her work could have serious consequences for American forces in the field. Morrison, unaware of Thompson's growing concern, decided to force the issue. "That's it. Ma'am, you have 30 seconds to step away from that terminal, or I will physically remove you from this facility." The threat of physical action changed the atmosphere in the command center. Several personnel moved closer, some supporting Morrison's authority, others positioning themselves to intervene if the situation became violent. Madison saved her work and slowly pushed back from the keyboard, rising to her full height for the first time since the confrontation began. At 5'6", she was significantly smaller than Morrison, but her movement showed none of the nervousness expected from someone about to be forcibly removed from a military facility. Garcia watched Madison's body language as she stood, noting the automatic adjustment to proper military bearing that seemed completely unconscious. Her feet positioned themselves at shoulder width, her shoulders squared naturally, and her hands moved to parade rest position without apparent thought. "Lieutenant Commander Morrison," Madison said, her voice remaining calm despite the escalating threats, "I understand your concerns about security protocols. However, I would recommend verifying authorization before taking irreversible action." Morrison interpreted this as defiance of his clear instruction. "Ma'am, verification time is over. You've been instructed to leave, and you've refused to comply. Step away from that terminal now." Madison remained in position, not moving toward the terminal, but not stepping away from it either. Her winter blue eyes held Morrison's gaze steadily, showing no fear despite being confronted by someone significantly larger and backed by institutional authority. Hayes made his decision. "Lieutenant Commander Morrison escorts this individual from the facility while Chief Carter continues working on verification through proper channels. We can sort out any administrative issues after operational security is ensured." Morrison stepped toward Madison with obvious satisfaction at having his authority confirmed by the colonel. "Ma'am, you heard the colonel. Time to go." Madison looked around the command center one final time, her gaze lingering on each phase as if memorizing who had supported professional evaluation versus who had chosen personal attack. Her expression showed no anger or resentment, just a calm assessment of how each person had chosen to respond under pressure. Garcia felt increasingly uncomfortable with the situation. Something about Madison's complete lack of fear suggested she knew something the rest of them didn't. In his experience, people who remained calm under threat usually had good reasons for their confidence. Morrison moved close enough to take Madison's arm, expecting either compliance or resistance that would justify whatever force became necessary. Madison looked up at Morrison with an expression that might have been sadness rather than defiance. "Lieutenant Commander, I hope you'll remember this moment and consider what it teaches about making assumptions based on appearances." Morrison paused, unsettled by the unexpected nature of her response. He had expected pleading, anger, or fear, not what sounded like gentle advice about personal growth. Thompson stepped forward, his technical expertise finally overriding his reluctance to challenge authority. "Sir, I think we should complete verification before proceeding. The intelligence she was analyzing appears to support active operations." Hayes turned his attention to Thompson with obvious irritation. "Tech Sergeant, the security verification process has already indicated irregularities. We can't afford to compromise operational security while waiting for administrative resolution." Thompson felt torn between respect for command authority and growing certainty that removing Madison would interrupt critical intelligence work that could affect American forces in the field. Rodriguez watched with satisfaction as Morrison prepared to physically remove the contractor who had dared to invade their professional space. This was how proper order was maintained, through clear demonstration that military standards wouldn't be compromised for political correctness. Williams felt sick to his stomach as he watched the confrontation escalate. Madison had done nothing aggressive or unprofessional, yet she was being treated like a threat simply because she didn't fit predetermined expectations about who belonged in their elite environment. Garcia made his decision. "Sir, request permission to complete security verification before proceeding with removal." Hayes felt his authority being challenged from multiple directions. "Master Chief, my order was clear. We remove the security risk first and complete paperwork second." Garcia had served under enough commanders to recognize the difference between good judgment and stubborn pride. "Sir, understand. However, if she is supporting active operations, removal could compromise mission success." Morrison looked between Garcia and Hayes, sensing that his clear authority was being undermined by unnecessary complications. "Master Chief, with respect, security protocols exist for good reasons. We can't make exceptions based on speculation." Madison shifted slightly, and Morrison immediately interpreted the movement as potential resistance. He moved closer, prepared to take physical control of the situation. At that exact moment, Carter's secure phone rang with the distinctive tone that indicated a call from Flag Officer level command. Carter answered immediately. "Chief Carter, Coronado Command Center." The voice on the other end was crisp and unmistakable in its authority. "Chief, this is Admiral Thompson, Pacific Fleet Intelligence. I need immediate status on Lieutenant Commander Cross. Is she currently in your facility?" Carter felt the blood drain from his face. Lieutenant Commander Cross? The contractor they were about to forcibly remove was a lieutenant commander? "Admiral, we have an individual named Madison Cross in our facility. There's been some questions about her authorization status." Admiral Thompson's voice sharpened. "Chief, what kind of questions?" "Lieutenant Commander Cross has cosmic clearance for Pacific Theater operations. Her authorization exceeds everyone in your facility except your commanding officer." Carter's hands started to shake as he realized the magnitude of what was about to happen. "Admiral, there's been a misunderstanding. Personnel here believed she was a contractor." The silence on the phone line lasted long enough for Carter to feel sweat beginning to form on his forehead. "Chief," Admiral Thompson said slowly, "are you telling me that someone in your facility has been treating a DevGru Team 6 officer as an unauthorized contractor?" Carter looked around the command center, where Morrison was still positioning himself to physically remove Madison, where Rodriguez was watching with satisfaction, where Hayes was growing impatient with administrative delays. "Admiral, I need to immediately brief the colonel on this situation." "Chief, you do that immediately. And Chief, if any action has been taken against Lieutenant Commander Cross, based on assumptions about her authorization status, there will be serious consequences for everyone involved." Carter ended the call with hands that were now visibly shaking. The room had fallen silent as everyone realized that the phone call had changed something fundamental about the situation. Hayes approached Carter. "Chief, what was that about?" Carter's voice came out as barely more than a whisper. "Sir, that was Admiral Thompson from Pacific Fleet Intelligence, the contractor we were about to remove. She's Lieutenant Commander Cross from DevGru Team 6. The comprehensive liability coverage required for high-clearance military contractors exceeded standard insurance policies by significant margins. Specialized financial protection designed for personnel operating in classified capacities provided coverage that traditional insurance would prove insufficient." The silence that followed Carter's announcement was complete and profound. 28 people in the command center all turned to look at Madison, who remained in her calm parade rest position as if nothing significant had just occurred. Morrison felt his world tilting seatways. DevGru Team 6 was the most elite special operations unit in the American military. The contractor he had been about to physically remove was not only military, but special operations. And not only special operations, but the most elite unit in existence. Rodriguez stared at Madison with growing horror as she realized that her attacks on military bearing and professional competence had been directed at someone whose qualifications exceeded her own by an enormous margin. Thompson felt vindicated in his growing suspicion that Madison's technical expertise indicated specialized military training, but also terrified at the implications of how she had been treated. Hayes realized that his command authority had been used to authorize the forcible removal of an officer whose rank and clearance level exceeded his own capability to evaluate. Garcia felt a mixture of relief that his instincts had been correct and anxiety about how close they had come to an irreversible mistake. Williams looked around the room at his colleagues, seeing them all frozen in the realization that they had collectively misjudged the situation in the worst possible way. Madison remained in position, her expression unchanged, as if she were waiting for them to process the information and decide how to proceed. Morrison found his voice first, though it came out cracked and uncertain. "Ma'am, your uniform doesn't show." Madison looked at Morrison with the same calm expression she had maintained throughout the confrontation. "Lieutenant Commander Morrison, DevGru personnel often operate without traditional rank identification when assignment parameters require discretion." Hayes stepped forward, his command training finally overriding his shock. "Ma'am, I sincerely apologize for this misunderstanding. If you could help us understand the nature of your assignment here, we can ensure proper support for your mission requirements." Madison turned her attention to Hayes with what might have been the beginning of professional acknowledgement. "Colonel Hayes, my assignment involves evaluation of readiness and psychological resilience among special operations personnel. Today's events have provided valuable data." Rodriguez felt her stomach drop as the implications hit her. Evaluation of readiness and psychological resilience. Today's events. They hadn't just mistreated a superior officer. They had been undergoing evaluation the entire time, and they had failed spectacularly. Thompson realized that Madison's technical expertise hadn't been impressive for a contractor. It had been routine competence for a DevGru officer whose actual qualifications exceeded those of everyone who had questioned her. Morrison struggled to process the fact that his theatrical intimidation, his personal attacks, his threats of physical removal had all been directed at someone who could have ended the confrontation at any moment, but had chosen to observe how far he would take his aggressive behavior. Carter continued making rapid calls to higher command levels, trying to control the administrative and disciplinary fallout from what he now realized had been a catastrophic failure of security protocol and professional judgment. Garcia approached Madison with proper military bearing. "Ma'am, Master Chief Garcia, I apologize for my personnel's failure to recognize your authority." Madison acknowledged Garcia with a slight nod. "Master Chief, your instincts and professionalism were noted throughout the situation." Hayes felt the weight of command responsibility settling on his shoulders as he realized the scope of investigation and review that would follow this incident. "Ma'am, may I ask about the evaluation parameters? What specifically was being assessed?" Madison returned to her terminal and pulled up a file that showed detailed behavioral analysis data collected over the past 30 minutes. "Colonel, the evaluation measured response to authority challenges, treatment of perceived outsiders, professional versus personal reaction to stress, and capacity for evidence-based assessment versus assumption-driven judgment." Morrison looked at the screen showing analysis of his own behavior, documented with precise timestamps and behavioral classifications. His public humiliation of what he believed was an unauthorized contractor had been recorded and evaluated for patterns that revealed his character and judgment under pressure. Rodriguez saw her own actions classified under categories that included gender-based assumptions, social dominance behavior, and failure to maintain professional standards when confronted with perceived threats to status. Thompson found some relief in behavioral assessments that showed his technical expertise and growing concern for mission impact had been noted positively, even though his initial participation in questioning Madison's qualifications was also documented. Hayes reviewed command decisions that showed his prioritization of administrative efficiency over thorough evaluation, his susceptibility to pressure from subordinates, and his willingness to authorize action without complete information. Carter's security procedures were analyzed for effectiveness in identifying legitimate personnel versus reliance on visual assumptions and standard protocols that failed to account for specialized operation requirements. Williams felt some vindication as the assessment showed his discomfort with the escalating personal attacks and his growing suspicion that the situation wasn't what it appeared to be. "This is where everything changes, and I can barely contain my excitement. Share in the comments what you think is about to be revealed. This moment is going to be absolutely unforgettable." Madison turned away from the terminal to address the assembled personnel directly for the first time since her identity had been revealed. "The evaluation period has concluded," she announced, her voice carrying new authority that no one in the room would think to question. "Each of your responses to the perceived security threat provided data about psychological readiness for high-stress operations where standard assumptions may not apply." Morrison felt compelled to speak, though his voice remained uncertain. "Ma'am, the evaluation, what does it indicate about our readiness status?" Madison consulted her data briefly before responding. "Lieutenant Commander Morrison, your immediate resort to intimidation tactics and personal attacks suggests difficulty maintaining professional standards when authority is challenged. These patterns could compromise unit cohesion during extended operations. The assessment was delivered without malice, but its accuracy cut deep." Morrison recognized the truth in her evaluation, even as it demonstrated how completely he had misjudged both the situation and her qualifications to assess it. Rodriguez received a similar analysis. "Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, your competitive responses included gender-based assumptions and social exclusion tactics that could damage team effectiveness in integrated operations requiring diverse expertise." Thompson's evaluation was more positive. "Tech Sergeant Thompson, your technical expertise and growing concern for operational impact demonstrated appropriate priority balancing, though initial participation in credential challenges suggests susceptibility to group pressure." Hayes listened as his command decisions were analyzed with clinical precision. "Colonel Hayes, administrative efficiency was prioritized over thorough evaluation, indicating potential for premature action under pressure. However, willingness to delegate authority and incorporate subordinate input showed positive leadership flexibility. Garcia received recognition for his professional instincts. Master Chief Garcia, behavioral assessment remained focused on professional competence throughout the incident. Veteran experience provided appropriate caution regarding assumption-based conclusions. Carter's security procedures were noted for both strengths and weaknesses. Chief Carter, security protocols were appropriate but inflexible when confronted with authorization levels outside standard parameters. Additional training for specialized clearance recognition is recommended. Williams was acknowledged for maintaining personal integrity despite peer pressure. Petty Officer Williams, professional conscience, remained active throughout escalating conflicts. Resistance to group pressure suggests strong individual judgment capabilities. Each assessment felt accurate and somewhat uncomfortable, forcing personnel to confront their own behavior patterns under stress. Madison's evaluation had revealed character traits that they might not have recognized about themselves. Hayes addressed the practical implications. "Ma'am, what are the next steps regarding this evaluation? Will there be formal reports filed regarding our performance?" Madison consulted her secure tablet, reviewing data that would determine personnel recommendations for upcoming operations. "Colonel, evaluation results will be integrated into readiness assessments for Pacific Theater operations currently in planning stages. Personnel who demonstrated adaptability and professional judgment will receive preference for assignments requiring psychological resilience." Morrison realized that his behavior during the evaluation might have cost him opportunities for advancement and selection for elite operations. His intimidation tactics and assumption-based aggression had been documented as leadership deficiencies that could affect his career trajectory. Rodriguez faced similar implications. Her competitive attacks and gender-based assumptions had been recorded as a pattern indicating potential problems with integrated team operations, which were becoming increasingly common in modern military assignments. Thompson found that his technical expertise and ultimate concern for mission impact had earned positive notes that could enhance his selection for specialized assignments requiring both technical competence and good judgment under pressure. Hayes understood that his command decisions were now part of his permanent evaluation record, but that his willingness to listen to subordinate concerns and delegate authority had been noted as positive leadership traits. Garcia's veteran instincts and professional behavior had been documented as exemplary, potentially leading to recommendations for senior positions requiring mature judgment and personnel evaluation capabilities. Carter needed additional training for recognizing specialized clearance levels, but his commitment to security protocols had been noted as professionally appropriate, even when applied inflexibly. Williams's resistance to peer pressure and maintenance of personal integrity suggested potential for leadership roles requiring independence and moral courage. Madison began shutting down her terminal systems, indicating that her work in the command center was concluding. The evaluation data will be processed through DevGRU assessment protocols and integrated with other readiness factors to determine optimal personnel selection for upcoming operations. Morrison found himself needing to understand the broader implications. "Ma'am, how often does this type of evaluation occur? Are personnel regularly tested without their knowledge?" Madison looked at Morrison with an expression that might have been educational rather than judgmental. "Lieutenant Commander, special operations require personnel capable of performing effectively under conditions where assumptions, first impressions, and standard protocols may prove inadequate. Regular assessment ensures mission success and personnel safety." Rodriguez realized that her entire military career had been built on assumptions about who belonged in elite environments and who deserved respect based on appearances. Madison's evaluation had forced her to confront how those assumptions could become professional liabilities. Thompson appreciated that his technical expertise had been recognized, but also understood that his initial participation in questioning Madison's qualifications showed how easily even competent personnel could be influenced by group dynamics rather than independent assessment. Hayes saw how command authority could become a trap when used to support actions based on incomplete information rather than thorough evaluation. His willingness to authorize Madison's removal had been appropriate given the information available, but the incident demonstrated the importance of verification before action. Garcia felt validation for trusting professional instincts over group consensus, but also recognized that his voice of caution had been too subtle to effectively influence the outcome until external verification arrived. Carter understood that security protocols needed flexibility to accommodate specialized operations while maintaining appropriate protection for classified information. Williams learned that individual integrity and resistance to peer pressure were valued traits that could lead to advancement opportunities, even when maintaining personal principles felt difficult in group situations. Madison completed her data collection and prepared to transition to the next phase of her assignment. Personnel evaluations are complete. Mission parameters now require focus on operational readiness for Pacific Theater assignments beginning within 72 hours. Hayes stepped forward with proper military bearing. "Ma'am, what level of support do you require for ongoing operations?" Madison consulted her mission briefing materials. "Colonel, upcoming operations require personnel with demonstrated psychological resilience, technical competence, and ability to function effectively in integrated teams." Today's evaluation provided data for final selection decisions. Morrison realized that despite his poor evaluation performance, he still had an opportunity to demonstrate improved judgment and professionalism. "Ma'am, request permission to apply for Pacific Theater assignments." Madison studied Morrison carefully, as if measuring his capacity for learning from mistakes and adapting behavior based on feedback. "Lieutenant Commander, your technical competence and leadership experience remain valuable assets. However, personnel selection for upcoming operations requires demonstrated ability to maintain professional standards under pressure." Rodriguez felt compelled to address her own behavior. "Ma'am, I recognize that my responses during the evaluation showed deficiencies in professional judgment. I would like to request additional training to address those areas." Madison acknowledged Rodriguez's recognition of areas needing improvement. "Staff Sergeant, awareness of behavioral patterns is the first step toward professional development. Additional training opportunities are available for personnel committed to improving team integration capabilities." Thompson found encouragement in Madison's assessment of his technical skills and ultimate mission focus. "Ma'am, would additional psychological resilience training enhance selection prospects for specialized assignments?" Madison nodded approvingly at Thompson's proactive approach to professional development. "Tech Sergeant, personnel who seek training to enhance capabilities rather than waiting for mandatory requirements demonstrate initiative valued in special operations." The command center atmosphere had transformed completely from the confrontational tension of 30 minutes earlier. Personnel now interacted with Madison as the superior officer she had been all along, seeking guidance and expressing professional respect that should have been evident from the beginning. Garcia approached Madison with a question that addressed broader implications. "Ma'am, how can command personnel better recognize and support embedded evaluation operations in the future?" Madison appreciated Garcia's focus on systemic improvement rather than individual defense. "Master Chief, successful integration of evaluation personnel requires command flexibility, thorough verification procedures, and maintaining professional standards regardless of assumptions about individual qualifications." Hayes realized that Madison's assignment represented a fundamental shift in how special operations evaluated psychological readiness. "Ma'am, will this evaluation model be implemented across other command centers?" Madison consulted her broader mission parameters. "Colonel, evaluation effectiveness demonstrated here will influence expansion of psychological readiness assessment throughout Pacific Fleet Special Operations commands." Carter had been working frantically to ensure that security protocols were properly adjusted to support Madison's continued operations. "Ma'am, I've updated security clearance verification procedures to accommodate specialized operations clearance levels." Madison acknowledged Carter's proactive response to identified deficiencies. "Chief, security protocol adaptation demonstrates professional growth that will support future specialized operations." Williams found himself curious about career paths that led to assignments like Madison's. "Ma'am, what background and training prepare personnel for psychological evaluation roles?" Madison looked at Williams with what might have been encouragement for his continued professional development. "Petty Officer, psychological evaluation assignments require advanced training in behavioral assessment, special operations experience, and demonstrated ability to maintain cover while conducting evaluation activities." Morrison wrestled with the implications of his performance during the evaluation. His aggressive behavior and assumption-based judgment had been thoroughly documented, but Madison's responses suggested that personnel could learn from evaluation feedback and improve future performance. Rodriguez began to understand how her competitive instincts and exclusionary behavior could damage unit effectiveness in the integrated operations that were becoming standard in modern military assignments. Thompson saw that his technical expertise was valued, but needed to be balanced with independent judgment that wasn't compromised by group pressure or social dynamics. Hayes recognized that command authority carried responsibility for creating environments where proper evaluation could occur before action was taken, particularly when dealing with personnel whose qualifications might not be immediately obvious. Garcia felt confirmed in his approach to leadership that prioritized careful observation and professional assessment over quick judgments based on superficial factors. Carter understood that security protocols needed regular updating to accommodate evolving operational requirements while maintaining appropriate protection for classified operations. Williams learned that maintaining personal integrity and professional principles, even when difficult, was recognized as valuable preparation for leadership responsibilities. Madison began preparing for transition to the next phase of her assignment, which would involve actual operations rather than evaluation activities. The psychological readiness assessment was complete, and personnel selection decisions could now be made based on comprehensive data about individual and team performance under pressure. The secure communication system activated with priority alerts, indicating that Pacific Theater operations were moving from planning to implementation phases. Personnel selected based on evaluation performance would receive deployment assignments within 24 hours. Morrison looked around the command center where his behavior had been thoroughly assessed and found wanting, but where opportunities for redemption might still exist if he could demonstrate genuine professional growth. Rodriguez faced the reality that her assumptions and competitive behavior had been documented as factors that could compromise team effectiveness, but recognized that acknowledgement of deficiencies was the beginning of improvement. Thompson felt encouraged that his technical skills and ultimate mission focus had been noted positively, while understanding that continued professional development would enhance his prospects for specialized assignments. Hayes prepared to implement command improvements suggested by the evaluation while supporting personnel who had demonstrated readiness for upcoming operations. Garcia anticipated opportunities to apply his veteran experience and professional judgment to support special operations requiring mature leadership and personnel assessment capabilities. Carter focused on implementing security protocol improvements that would better support specialized operations while maintaining appropriate protection for classified activities. Williams considered career development paths that could lead to assignments requiring independence, integrity, and resistance to inappropriate peer pressure. As Madison gathered her materials and prepared to leave Terminal 7, the command center personnel understood that they had experienced a fundamental shift in how psychological readiness was assessed and how assumptions about qualifications could compromise professional effectiveness. The evaluation had ended, but its implications would influence their careers and the effectiveness of Pacific Theater operations for years to come. The afternoon light streaming through the command center windows marked the end of an evaluation period that had revealed as much about the assessors as about the personnel being assessed. In 18 minutes, Madison's carefully maintained cover as a contractor had been stripped away not by her choice, but by the aggressive behavior of personnel who assumed they understood who belonged in their elite environment. Morrison stood near his original position by Terminal 7, now fully aware that his intimidation tactics and personal attacks had been directed at an officer whose qualifications exceeded those of everyone in the room. The evaluation data showing his behavior patterns under pressure would follow him throughout his career, but it also provided a roadmap for professional improvement if he chose to learn from the experience. Rodriguez remained near the communications bay, where she had first challenged Madison's right to be present in their elite environment. Her competitive instincts and exclusionary behavior had been documented as potential threats to team effectiveness, forcing her to confront how assumptions about who deserved respect could compromise mission success. Thompson continued working at his weapons systems station, grateful that his technical expertise and growing mission focus had been noted positively, while recognizing that his initial participation in questioning Madison's qualifications showed how easily professional judgment could be compromised by group dynamics. Hayes maintained his command position with a new understanding that administrative efficiency needed to be balanced with thorough evaluation, particularly when dealing with specialized operations that might not conform to standard expectations. Garcia observed from his corner with satisfaction that his professional instincts and veteran experience had been validated, but also with recognition that speaking up more forcefully earlier might have prevented the escalation that had revealed everyone's character under pressure. Carter worked at his security station implementing protocol improvements that would better support specialized operations while maintaining appropriate protection for classified information. Williams remained at his communications position with growing confidence that maintaining personal integrity despite peer pressure had been noted as preparation for future leadership responsibilities. As the evaluation period concluded and normal operations resumed in the Coronado Naval Special Warfare Command Center, the personnel who had participated in Madison's psychological assessment carried with them new understanding of how assumptions, first impressions, and group pressure could compromise professional effectiveness. Their individual responses to the evaluation scenario would influence not only their own career trajectories, but also the composition of teams selected for the most critical Pacific Theater operations in the months ahead. The secure communication terminal at Madison's workstation chimed with an incoming priority message that displayed classification markings none of the gathered personnel had seen before. The header showed routing through Pentagon Special Operations Command, DevGRU Headquarters, and Pacific Fleet Intelligence simultaneously, indicating coordination between the highest levels of military authority. Madison acknowledged the message with biometric verification that required her palm print, retinal scan, and voice authentication. The security measures were far beyond anything used by standard military personnel, confirming that her clearance level operated in categories most of the command center staff had never encountered. Hayes approached cautiously, recognizing that he was observing security protocols that exceeded his own authorization to witness. "Ma'am, if you require private communication space for classified coordination, my office is available." Madison completed her authentication sequence before responding. "Colonel, the communication involves coordination for immediate deployment operations. Privacy protocols are sufficient at this terminal." Morrison watched Madison navigate security systems that he had never seen before, using clearance codes that granted her access to information networks he didn't know existed. The realization that her qualifications exceeded his understanding of military hierarchy continued to redefine his perception of the situation. Rodriguez observed Madison's professional competence with growing recognition that her own assumptions about who belonged in elite military environments had been fundamentally wrong. The contractor she had attempted to exclude possessed capabilities that made Rodriguez's own expertise look elementary by comparison. Thompson studied the technical interfaces Madison was using, noting that her system access included networks that were not available through standard command center terminals. Her clearance apparently included communication capabilities reserved for the most sensitive special operations coordination. Garcia moved closer to observe Madison's military bearing now that her cover had been dropped. Her posture, movement patterns, and unconscious habits all reflected years of elite military training that no civilian contractor could simulate convincingly. Carter continued implementing security protocol updates while monitoring Madison's communication activity, ensuring that proper support was provided for operations that clearly exceeded anything he had previously encountered. Williams watched the transformation in command center dynamics as personnel adjusted their behavior to reflect proper recognition of Madison's actual authority and qualifications. The priority message Madison had received contained deployment orders that would activate within hours rather than days. Pacific Theater operations were accelerating based on intelligence developments that required immediate response from personnel with specific qualifications, demonstrated through recent evaluation activities. Madison turned to address Hayes directly. "Colonel, deployment orders are confirmed for Pacific Theater operations, beginning at 0600 hours tomorrow. Personnel selection will be based on evaluation data collected during today's assessment." Hayes felt his pulse quicken as he realized that the evaluation period he had just witnessed was directly connected to combat operations that would deploy within 18 hours. "Ma'am, what level of personnel selection authority does your evaluation data carry?" Madison consulted her deployment briefing materials. "Colonel, evaluation results will determine team composition for classified operations requiring psychological resilience, technical competence, and proven ability to function effectively under stress." Morrison understood that his performance during the evaluation would directly impact whether he was selected for the most important operations of his career. His aggressive behavior and assumption-based judgment had been documented as potential liabilities for team effectiveness. Rodriguez realized that her competitive attacks and exclusionary tactics had been recorded as factors that could compromise mission success in the integrated operations that defined modern special operations warfare. Thompson felt encouraged that his technical expertise and ultimate mission focus had been noted positively, while understanding that selection for specialized operations required comprehensive assessment of professional competence under pressure. Garcia anticipated that his veteran experience and professional instincts would be valued for operations requiring mature judgment and personnel evaluation capabilities. Carter focused on ensuring that security support would be appropriate for operations involving personnel with clearance levels that exceeded standard command center protocols. Williams considered whether his demonstrated integrity and resistance to peer pressure indicated potential for selection to operations requiring independence and moral courage. Madison began accessing deployment preparation protocols that would coordinate personnel, equipment, and logistical support for operations that were classified at levels requiring special access authorization. The command center atmosphere had evolved from confrontational tension through shocked recognition to professional focus on operational requirements. Personnel who had participated in the evaluation now understood that their behavior during the assessment period would influence their selection for the most critical missions in their military careers. Hayes addressed practical coordination requirements. "Ma'am, what level of command support do you require for deployment preparation activities?" Madison pulled up resource requirements that included specialized equipment, transportation coordination, and communication support that exceeded standard command center capabilities. "Colonel, deployment preparation requires coordination with multiple commands, including DevGRU Headquarters, Pacific Fleet Intelligence, and Pentagon Special Operations Command." Morrison stepped forward with proper military bearing. "Ma'am, request clarification on personnel notification procedures for deployment selection." Madison looked at Morrison with an expression that measured his capacity for professional behavior after receiving feedback about evaluation performance. "Lieutenant Commander, personnel selected for deployment will receive notification through secure channels within 6 hours. Selection criteria prioritize demonstrated competence under pressure." Rodriguez approached with recognition that her earlier behavior needed to be addressed professionally. "Ma'am, regarding evaluation feedback on team integration capabilities, are there training opportunities available to address identified deficiencies?" Madison acknowledged Rodriguez's professional approach to receiving constructive criticism. "Staff Sergeant, additional training for team integration is available for personnel committed to professional development. However, immediate deployment operations require personnel with demonstrated capabilities." Thompson sought clarification about technical requirements for upcoming operations. "Ma'am, would additional information about technical specializations required for deployment assist with personnel preparation?" Madison consulted her operational briefing materials. "Tech Sergeant, deployment operations require diverse technical expertise, including communications, weapons systems, intelligence analysis, and medical support. Personnel selection will match individual capabilities to operational requirements." The legal framework surrounding classified military operations required specialized understanding of defense protocols and security regulations. Advanced legal education programs designed for military law provided training that would be crucial for navigating operational necessity and legal compliance. Garcia inquired about leadership requirements for upcoming operations. "Ma'am, what level of senior leadership experience is required for deployment team coordination?" Madison reviewed personnel requirements that included both technical specialists and experienced leadership capable of maintaining team effectiveness under combat stress. "Master Chief, senior leadership selection prioritizes proven judgment under pressure and capability to maintain team cohesion during extended operations." Hayes realized that his command decisions during the evaluation period would be considered alongside operational requirements for upcoming missions. "Ma'am, will command personnel from this facility be considered for deployment assignment?" Madison looked at Hayes with an assessment that weighed his administrative efficiency against his willingness to authorize action without complete information. "Colonel, command personnel selection requires demonstrated ability to make sound decisions under pressure while maintaining operational flexibility. Carter addressed security protocol requirements for supporting deployed operations. Ma'am, what security clearance verification procedures will be required for deployment preparation? Madison acknowledged Carter's focus on maintaining proper security standards. Chief, deployment operations require security protocols appropriate for cosmic clearance levels and special access programs. Standard verification procedures are insufficient. Williams asked about career development implications of evaluation performance. Ma'am, how will evaluation results influence long-term career progression for personnel not selected for immediate deployment? Madison considered Williams's question about professional development beyond immediate operational requirements. Petty officer evaluation data provides guidance for training opportunities and future assignment consideration. Professional growth remains possible regardless of immediate selection outcomes. The priority communication system activated again with updates indicating that Pacific Theater operations were expanding beyond initial scope due to developing intelligence that required enhanced personnel capabilities and specialized equipment. Madison reviewed the updated operational parameters that increased both mission complexity and personnel requirements. More teams would be deployed, requiring selection from broader personnel pools that included individuals who demonstrated specific capabilities during evaluation activities. Morrison realized that expanding operations might provide opportunities for personnel whose evaluation performance showed areas for improvement but also demonstrated core competencies valuable for specialized missions. Rodriguez understood that additional deployment opportunities could allow personnel to demonstrate improved professional capabilities despite earlier evaluation challenges. Thompson appreciated that expanding technical requirements would create multiple pathways for personnel with different specializations to contribute to mission success. Hayes recognized that larger operations would require more command coordination, potentially providing opportunities for leadership personnel to demonstrate improved decision-making capabilities. Garcia anticipated that expanded operations would need senior personnel capable of training and mentoring junior team members during complex deployment activities. Carter focused on scaling security support to accommodate larger operations, involving personnel with diverse clearance levels and specialized requirements. Williams considered whether expanded operations would create opportunities for personnel with demonstrated integrity and independence to contribute to mission success. Madison began coordinating with multiple command centers to support the expanding operational scope that would deploy personnel from several facilities throughout the Pacific Theater. The secure communication revealed that operations would involve coordination with allied military forces, requiring personnel capable of effective interaction with international partners while maintaining operational security for classified activities. Morrison understood that international cooperation would require personnel with proven professional behavior and cultural sensitivity that could represent American military standards effectively. Rodriguez realized that international operations would demand team integration capabilities that transcended individual competitiveness and social dominance, behaviors that could compromise diplomatic relationships. Thompson appreciated that technical coordination with allied forces would require expertise that could bridge different equipment standards and operational procedures while maintaining mission effectiveness. Hayes recognized that command coordination with allied forces would require diplomatic skills and cultural awareness that complemented military competence and operational experience. Garcia anticipated that senior leadership roles in international operations would require mature judgment, capable of navigating complex political and military relationships while maintaining team cohesion. Carter understood that security coordination with allied forces would require protocols that maintained appropriate protection for American classified information while enabling effective cooperation. Williams considered whether international operations would provide opportunities to develop cultural competence and diplomatic skills that complemented technical military training. Madison completed coordination activities that would support joint operations involving American and Allied Special Operations Forces in Pacific Theater locations that remained classified pending final deployment authorization. The command center personnel began to understand that their evaluation had been conducted in preparation for operations that exceeded anything they had previously experienced in scope, complexity, and international significance. Hayes addressed resource coordination requirements. Ma'am, What level of logistical support will be required for joint international operations? Madison consulted operational planning documents that detailed equipment, transportation, and communication requirements for multinational special operations coordination. Colonel, logistical requirements include specialized equipment compatible with Allied force standards and communication systems capable of secure multinational coordination. Morrison asked about cultural preparation for international cooperation. Ma'am, are there briefing requirements for personnel deploying with Allied forces? Madison acknowledged Morrison's professional focus on operational preparation. Lieutenant Commander, cultural awareness and diplomatic protocol training are required for all personnel deploying in international cooperation roles. Rodriguez inquired about team integration requirements for multinational operations. Ma'am, what specific capabilities are required for effective integration with Allied Special Operations personnel? Madison evaluated Rodriguez's question about team effectiveness in international contexts. Staff Sergeant, multinational team integration requires demonstrated professional behavior, cultural sensitivity, and ability to maintain mission focus despite differences in operational approaches. Thompson sought clarification about technical coordination with Allied forces. Ma'am, will technical specialists require familiarity with Allied equipment standards and communication protocols? Madison reviewed technical requirements that included cross-training with Allied force equipment and communication systems. Tech Sergeant, technical coordination requires adaptability and expertise that can bridge different operational standards while maintaining mission effectiveness. Garcia asked about senior leadership roles in international operations. Ma'am, what experience level is required for leadership positions in multinational special operations? Madison considered leadership requirements that included both military competence and diplomatic awareness. Master Chief, senior leadership selection prioritizes proven judgment, cultural competence, and ability to maintain team effectiveness in complex international environments. Carter addressed security coordination challenges for multinational operations. Ma'am, what security protocols govern information sharing and operational coordination with Allied forces? Madison acknowledged the complexity of maintaining operational security while enabling international cooperation. Chief, security protocols require balance between appropriate information sharing for mission success and protection of sensitive American capabilities and intelligence. Williams inquired about career development opportunities through international deployment experience. Ma'am, how do multinational operations contribute to professional development and future assignment opportunities? Madison recognized Williams's focus on long-term career growth through diverse operational experience. Petty Officer, international operations provide cultural competence and diplomatic experience that enhance qualifications for senior positions requiring global perspective. The expanding operational scope required immediate personnel decisions based on evaluation data that would determine team composition for missions that could define Pacific Theater security relationships for years to come. Madison began final personnel selection activities that would match individual capabilities demonstrated during evaluation with operational requirements for multinational special operations that demanded both technical expertise and cultural competence. Morrison felt the weight of understanding that his behavior during the evaluation period would influence not only his own career trajectory, but also his potential contribution to operations that could affect international security relationships. Rodriguez recognized that her professional development regarding team integration would determine whether she could contribute effectively to operations requiring cooperation with Allied forces, whose cultural approaches might differ from American military traditions. Thompson appreciated that his technical expertise would be valuable for international operations, but that cultural adaptability and professional behavior would be equally important for mission success. Hayes understood that his command capabilities would be measured against requirements for coordinating with Allied force commanders, whose operational approaches might challenge his administrative preferences. Garcia anticipated that his veteran experience and professional judgment would be particularly valuable for operations requiring mentorship of international personnel and maintenance of team cohesion across cultural differences. Carter focused on developing security expertise that could maintain appropriate protection for American capabilities while enabling effective cooperation with Allied forces whose security protocols might differ from American standards. Williams considered how his demonstrated integrity and independence might contribute to operations requiring diplomatic sensitivity and cultural awareness that complemented technical military competence. Madison completed personnel selection activities that would determine team composition for operations, beginning within 12 hours. The evaluation data collected during the confrontation in the command center had provided a comprehensive assessment of individual capabilities under pressure. The secure communication system activated with final deployment authorization that confirmed operational parameters, personnel assignments, and coordination requirements for multinational special operations that would deploy from multiple Pacific Theater locations. Morrison received notification through secure channels that his technical competence and leadership experience had qualified him for deployment assignment, contingent on demonstrated improvement in professional behavior and judgment under pressure. Rodriguez was selected for additional training in team integration and cultural competence that would prepare her for future international deployment opportunities, recognizing both her capabilities and areas requiring professional development. Thompson received an immediate deployment assignment based on his technical expertise and ultimate mission focus, with additional responsibilities for coordinating technical standards between American and Allied force equipment. Hayes was assigned command coordination responsibilities that would require diplomatic engagement with Allied force commanders while maintaining operational effectiveness and security protocols. Garcia received a senior leadership assignment for training and mentoring international personnel while maintaining team cohesion and operational effectiveness during complex multinational operations. Carter was selected for security coordination roles that would balance protection of American capabilities with enabling effective international cooperation through appropriate information sharing protocols. Williams received assignment to cultural liaison responsibilities that would utilize his demonstrated integrity and independence to facilitate effective cooperation between American and Allied force personnel. Madison prepared for transition to operational command responsibilities that would coordinate multinational special operations based on intelligence developments requiring immediate response from personnel with demonstrated psychological resilience. The command center personnel who had participated in the evaluation understood that their individual responses to stress, pressure, and unexpected challenges had determined their selection for operations that would define their military careers and potentially influence international security relationships. Hayes addressed final coordination requirements. Ma'am, what timeline constraints govern deployment preparation and personnel coordination? Madison consulted operational schedules that required personnel to be in position within 18 hours for coordination with Allied forces already positioning for joint operations. Colonel, deployment preparation must be completed by 0400 hours for transportation to classified staging areas. Morrison understood that immediate deployment preparation would require focus on professional development areas identified during evaluation. Ma'am, what specific preparation activities are required for personnel with contingent assignment status? Madison looked at Morrison with an assessment that measured his commitment to learning from evaluation feedback. Lieutenant Commander, contingent assignments require demonstrated improvement in professional judgment and team integration capabilities before final confirmation. Rodriguez approached with professional bearing. Ma'am, request guidance on preparation activities for future international deployment qualification. Madison acknowledged Rodriguez's professional approach to addressing evaluation feedback. Staff Sergeant, preparation requires training in cultural competence, diplomatic protocol, and team integration techniques appropriate for multinational operations. Thompson sought clarification about technical coordination requirements. Ma'am, what preparation timeline is required for technical coordination with Allied force equipment and communications standards? Madison reviewed technical training requirements that would enable effective coordination with Allied forces using different operational equipment. Tech Sergeant, technical coordination training begins immediately upon arrival at staging areas where Allied force personnel will provide cross-training opportunities. Garcia inquired about leadership preparation for international operations. Ma'am, what cultural awareness training is required for senior leadership positions in multinational operations? Madison considered leadership preparation requirements that included both military competence and diplomatic sensitivity. Master Chief, leadership preparation includes briefings on Allied force command structures, cultural communication patterns, and diplomatic protocols that complement military expertise. Carter asked about security coordination preparation. Ma'am, what training is required for security coordination with allied forces using different protection standards? Madison acknowledged the complexity of maintaining security while enabling international cooperation. Chief, security coordination training includes protocols for appropriate information, sharing, and protection standards that maintain operational security while supporting mission effectiveness. Williams requested clarification about cultural liaison preparation requirements. Ma'am, what preparation activities will develop cultural competence for effective interaction with Allied force personnel? Madison recognized Williams's focus on developing capabilities that would contribute to mission success. Petty Officer, cultural liaison preparation includes language training, cultural awareness briefings, and diplomatic protocol instruction that will facilitate effective international cooperation. This story proves that real strength doesn't always announce itself loudly. If Madison's journey moved you, smash that like button and hit subscribe, because there are so many more incredible tales of hidden warriors you absolutely need to hear. The personnel selected for deployment began immediate preparation activities that would ready them for multinational special operations, requiring both military competence and cultural adaptability. Their performance during Madison's evaluation had determined not only their selection, but also their specific roles in operations that could influence Pacific Theater security for years to come. Madison coordinated final deployment preparation that included specialized equipment, transportation arrangements, and communication protocols that would support multinational operations involving classified capabilities and international coordination. The command center atmosphere reflected professional focus on operational requirements as personnel prepared for deployment activities that represented the most significant assignments of their military careers. Morrison began preparation activities that emphasized professional development areas identified during evaluation, recognizing that his deployment assignment depended on demonstrated improvement in judgment and team integration capabilities. Rodriguez focused on cultural competence training that would prepare her for future international deployment opportunities while addressing team integration deficiencies noted during evaluation. Thompson coordinated technical preparation that would enable effective interaction with Allied force equipment and communication standards while maintaining operational effectiveness. Hayes prepared for command coordination responsibilities that would require diplomatic engagement with Allied force leadership while maintaining American operational standards and security protocols. Garcia organized leadership preparation that would enable effective mentoring of international personnel while maintaining team cohesion during complex multinational operations. Carter developed security coordination expertise that would balance protection of American capabilities with appropriate information sharing required for international cooperation. Williams engaged in cultural liaison preparation that would utilize his demonstrated integrity and independence to facilitate effective cooperation between American and Allied force personnel. Madison completed coordination activities that would support immediate deployment of personnel selected based on evaluation performance for multinational special operations beginning within hours. The evaluation period that had begun with confrontation over terminal access had concluded with comprehensive assessment of psychological resilience, professional competence, and cultural adaptability required for the most critical Pacific Theater operations. Personnel who had participated in the evaluation understood that their responses to unexpected challenges, pressure situations, and assumption testing scenarios had revealed character traits that would influence their military careers and contribution to international security operations. The command center that had witnessed Madison's evaluation now served as a coordination point for deployment preparation that would position American Special Operations personnel alongside Allied forces for classified missions requiring unprecedented cooperation. Hayes coordinated final logistical support that would ensure proper preparation for personnel deploying with varied assignment status based on evaluation performance and operational requirements. Morrison completed preparation activities that demonstrated commitment to professional improvement while maintaining readiness for deployment contingent on continued development of judgment and team integration capabilities. Rodriguez engaged in training that addressed evaluation feedback while preparing for future international deployment opportunities that would utilize her technical competence and developing cultural awareness. Thompson finalized technical preparation that would enable effective coordination with Allied force equipment while maintaining operational effectiveness and mission focus demonstrated during evaluation. Garcia prepared leadership coordination that would utilize veteran experience and professional judgment for mentoring international personnel while maintaining team effectiveness during complex operations. Carter completed security preparation that would enable appropriate protection of American capabilities while supporting international cooperation required for multinational operations. Williams finished cultural liaison preparation that would utilize demonstrated integrity and independence for facilitating effective cooperation between American and Allied personnel with different operational approaches. Madison verified deployment readiness for personnel selected through evaluation activities that had assessed psychological resilience, technical competence, and professional behavior under pressure. The transition from evaluation to deployment represented completion of assessment activities that would influence personnel selection for Pacific Theater operations, requiring both military expertise and international cooperation capabilities. Command Center personnel recognized that their participation in Madison's evaluation had provided a comprehensive assessment of individual capabilities that would determine their contribution to operations affecting international security relationships. The professional growth demonstrated through response to evaluation feedback would influence long-term career development for personnel selected for immediate deployment and those qualifying for future international assignment opportunities. Madison prepared for transition to operational command that would coordinate multinational special operations based on personnel capabilities demonstrated through evaluation activities conducted in command centers throughout the Pacific Theater. The evaluation methodology would be implemented across additional facilities based on effectiveness demonstrated through personnel selection for operations requiring psychological resilience, technical competence, and cultural adaptability. Command Center operations returned to standard protocols with enhanced understanding of evaluation activities that could occur without advance notification to assess readiness for specialized operations requiring capabilities beyond technical expertise. Personnel who had experienced evaluation recognized that professional competence included adaptability to unexpected situations, judgment under pressure, and ability to maintain effectiveness when standard assumptions proved incorrect. The deployment preparation that followed evaluation demonstrated practical application of assessment data for operations that would test individual capabilities and team effectiveness under conditions requiring both military expertise and international cooperation. Madison's coordination activities concluded with verification that personnel selected through evaluation were prepared for multinational operations, beginning within hours at classified locations throughout the Pacific Theater. The command center that had served as evaluation location now provided coordination support for deployment activities that would position American Special Operations personnel for operations requiring unprecedented international cooperation. Personnel selected for deployment understood that their performance during evaluation had qualified them for operations that would define their military careers while contributing to Pacific Theater security through effective cooperation with Allied forces. The professional development opportunities provided through evaluation feedback would influence long-term career growth for personnel regardless of immediate deployment selection status. Madison completed final coordination that would support deployment of personnel whose capabilities had been comprehensively assessed through evaluation activities designed to measure readiness for the most demanding special operations assignments. As deployment preparation concluded, Madison's encrypted phone activated with the distinctive tone that indicated priority alpha communication from DevGru command requiring immediate response. The screen displayed classification markings that exceeded anything personnel in the command center had previously witnessed. DevGru Team 6, immediate deployment authorization, cosmic clearance required, Pacific Theater, classified location, asset recovery mission, time-sensitive operations. Report for briefing, 1600 hours. Madison acknowledged the priority communication while maintaining operational security appropriate for classified deployment orders in the presence of personnel with varied clearance levels. Hayes approached with proper military bearing. Ma'am, does priority communication require additional command support or coordination resources? Madison reviewed deployment orders that indicated transition from evaluation activities to operational command responsibilities for classified missions requiring immediate response. Colonel, deployment authorization has been confirmed, evaluation activities are concluded, and operational command assumes responsibility for mission execution. Morrison stepped forward with recognition that deployment orders represented transition to actual combat operations. Ma'am, request clarification on deployment status for personnel with contingent assignment notification. Madison considered Morrison's request while evaluating his demonstrated professional growth following evaluation feedback. Lieutenant Commander, contingent assignments require final confirmation based on continued demonstration of professional judgment and team integration capabilities. Rodriguez approached with proper respect for Madison's authority. Ma'am, will training opportunities remain available for personnel not selected for immediate deployment? Madison acknowledged Rodriguez's professional approach to career development following evaluation. Staff Sergeant training opportunities for professional development remain available through command coordination with specialized instruction programs. Thompson sought clarification about technical support requirements for deployment operations. Ma'am, will technical coordination with Allied forces require ongoing support from command center personnel? Madison reviewed operational requirements that included communication links between deployed personnel and command center support. Tech Sergeant, deployment operations require technical coordination support that will utilize command center resources and personnel expertise. Garcia inquired about ongoing coordination requirements for deployed operations. Ma'am, what level of command center support will be required for multinational operations coordination? Madison consulted operational parameters that included coordination requirements between deployed teams and multiple command centers. Master Chief, multinational operations require ongoing coordination between deployed personnel, command center squadrons, and Allied force headquarters. Carter addressed security coordination requirements for supporting deployed operations. Ma'am, what security protocols govern ongoing communication between deployed teams and command center support? Madison acknowledged the complexity of maintaining operational security while providing necessary support for deployed personnel. Chief, security protocols require encryption standards appropriate for cosmic clearance operations with ongoing coordination requirements. Williams asked about career development opportunities through support of deployed operations. Ma'am, will command center support of deployed operations provide professional development experience for non-deployed personnel? Madison recognized Williams's focus on professional growth through diverse operational experience. Petty Officer, support of deployed operations provides coordination experience that contributes to qualification for future specialized assignments. The priority communication indicated that Madison's role would transition from evaluation coordination to operational command of classified missions, requiring immediate deployment of personnel with demonstrated capabilities. Hayes coordinated command center support that would maintain communication with deployed personnel while continuing standard operations and preparing additional personnel for potential deployment as operations expanded. Morrison focused on continued professional development that would qualify him for deployment as operations expanded or additional personnel requirements developed. Rodriguez engaged in training activities that would prepare her for future international deployment opportunities while contributing to command center support of current operations. Thompson provided technical coordination support for deployed operations while maintaining command center systems and preparing for potential technical requirements as missions evolved. Garcia utilized veteran experience to coordinate support activities while preparing for potential deployment as senior leadership requirements expanded with operational scope. Carter implemented security protocols that would protect classified communication while enabling effective coordination between deployed personnel and command center support. Williams contributed to coordination activities that provided professional development experience while supporting deployed operations and preparing for potential future assignment opportunities. Madison prepared for immediate deployment to operational command responsibilities that would coordinate classified missions based on personnel capabilities assessed through evaluation activities. The command center personnel understood that their participation in evaluation had prepared them for ongoing support of operations that would influence Pacific Theater security through effective international cooperation. The transition from evaluation to deployment represented practical application of assessment data for operations requiring both military expertise and cultural adaptability demonstrated through response to unexpected challenges. Madison gathered her materials and prepared to leave the command centers that had served as evaluation location for assessment activities that would influence personnel selection throughout the Pacific Theater. As Madison moved toward the exit, she turned to address the assembled personnel one final time. The evaluation period has demonstrated that professional competence requires adaptability, judgment under pressure, and ability to maintain effectiveness when initial assumptions prove incorrect. Morrison stood at attention with recognition that his behavior during evaluation had provided valuable feedback about professional development areas requiring continued attention. Rodriguez maintained proper military bearing, while acknowledging that evaluation feedback had identified team integration capabilities requiring ongoing training and development. Thompson demonstrated technical competence that had been recognized during evaluation, while understanding that professional growth required continued development of judgment independent of group pressure. Hayes exhibited command bearing that reflected lessons learned about balancing administrative efficiency with thorough assessment before taking action. Garcia showed veteran professionalism that had been validated during evaluation while recognizing opportunities to provide mentorship for personnel requiring professional development. Carter maintained a security focus that had been noted during evaluation while implementing protocol improvements that would better support specialized operations. Williams displayed integrity that had been recognized during evaluation while appreciating opportunities for professional development through diverse operational experience. Madison approached the command center exit with recognition that the evaluation had provided a comprehensive assessment of individual capabilities that would influence Pacific Theater operations for years to come. Real warriors demonstrate strength through professional competence, not through intimidation of those who appear different, Madison said as her final guidance to the assembled personnel. Remember this lesson during your careers and ensure that judgment is based on demonstrated capability rather than superficial assumptions. With those words, Lieutenant Commander Madison Phoenix Cross left the Coronado Naval Special Warfare Command Center, transitioning from evaluation coordinator to operational commander for classified missions that would test the capabilities of personnel selected through the most comprehensive psychological assessment in special operations history. The command center personnel remained in position, understanding that their responses to Madison's evaluation had revealed character traits that would influence their military careers and contribution to operations requiring both technical expertise and cultural competence for international cooperation. Morrison looked around the command center where his aggressive behavior had been thoroughly documented, recognizing that professional growth required acknowledging mistakes and demonstrating improved judgment through continued development. Rodriguez considered the feedback she had received about team integration, understanding that effective military service required cooperation and inclusion rather than competitive dominance and social exclusion. Thompson appreciated that his technical expertise had been valued, while recognizing that professional competence required independent judgment that wasn't compromised by group pressure or social dynamics. Hayes reflected on command decisions that had prioritized administrative efficiency over thorough evaluation, understanding that effective leadership required balanced assessment before authorizing action. Garcia felt validated in his professional instincts while recognizing opportunities to speak more forcefully when witnessing situations that required veteran experience and mature judgment. Carter focused on security improvements that would better support specialized operations while maintaining appropriate protection for classified information and personnel. Williams gained confidence that maintaining personal integrity despite peer pressure was valued preparation for leadership responsibilities requiring independence and moral courage. As normal operations resumed in the command center, personnel carried with them new understanding of how assumptions, first impressions, and group dynamics could compromise professional effectiveness and operational success. The evaluation methodology demonstrated by Madison would influence psychological assessment throughout Pacific Theater special operations, ensuring that personnel selection prioritized demonstrated capabilities over superficial characteristics. The deployment of personnel selected through evaluation activities would test the effectiveness of assessment methods that measured psychological resilience, technical competence, and cultural adaptability required for international cooperation. Command center operations continued with enhanced awareness that professional competence included readiness for evaluation activities that could occur without advance notification to assess capabilities required for specialized assignments. The legacy of Madison's evaluation would influence training programs, personnel selection procedures, and operational effectiveness throughout the military organizations responsible for Pacific Theater security. Personnel who had experienced the evaluation understood that their military careers would be defined not only by technical expertise, but also by demonstrated character, judgment under pressure, and ability to maintain effectiveness when confronting unexpected challenges to standard assumptions. The transformation of the command center from confrontational environment to professional workspace demonstrated the importance of thorough assessment and evidence-based judgment for maintaining operational effectiveness and team cohesion. As the afternoon progressed and deployment activities continued, the personnel at Coronado Naval Special Warfare Command Center recognized that they had participated in an evaluation that would influence their understanding of professional competence, cultural awareness, and effective leadership for the remainder of their military careers. The comprehensive assessment of individual responses to unexpected challenges had provided data that would guide personnel development, team selection, and operational planning for Pacific Theater missions requiring unprecedented cooperation between American and Allied Special Operations Forces. Madison's evaluation had concluded, but its implications would continue influencing military effectiveness, professional development, and international cooperation throughout the evolving security challenges of the Pacific Theater for years to come. 3 weeks later, the effects of that evaluation rippled through Special Operations commands across multiple continents. Morrison found himself leading a joint task force with Canadian and Australian Special Operations personnel in a classified Pacific operation, his improved judgment under pressure, earning recognition from international partners who noted his respectful treatment of Allied personnel regardless of their unconventional appearances or methods. Rodriguez completed her cultural competence training and was selected for deployment to a multinational base where her newfound awareness of team integration dynamics helped bridge communication gaps between American, British, and Japanese special operations units. Her quarterly evaluation noted marked improvement in collaborative leadership and reduction in competitive behaviors that had previously created friction in integrated operations. Thompson's technical expertise proved invaluable during Allied equipment integration exercises where his ability to adapt to unfamiliar systems while maintaining independent technical judgment earned him selection for the prestigious International Military Technology Exchange Program. His experience learning to evaluate competence based on demonstrated capability rather than initial assumptions made him an effective trainer for personnel from diverse military backgrounds. Hayes received promotion to Brigadier General and was assigned to oversee multinational special operations coordination throughout the Pacific Theater. His command philosophy now emphasized thorough evaluation before action, earning praise from senior leadership for reduced operational errors and improved decision-making under pressure. The lessons learned from his encounter with Madison influenced his approach to personnel assessment and operational planning. Garcia was selected for the Senior Leadership Development Program and assigned to train the next generation of Special Operations personnel in psychological resilience and professional judgment. His ability to recognize capability beneath unconventional appearances became a cornerstone of the advanced leadership curriculum taught throughout Special Operations training facilities. Carter developed security protocols that balanced protection of classified information with effective international cooperation, earning recognition as subject matter expert for multinational operations security. His protocols were adopted by NATO Special Operations commands and became standard for Allied force coordination activities. Williams received early promotion and was selected for Officer Candidate School, his demonstrated integrity and resistance to peer pressure marking him as leadership material. His experience maintaining professional standards despite group pressure became a case study in military ethics courses taught throughout the Pacific Fleet. The evaluation methodology Madison had demonstrated was implemented across 17 additional command centers throughout the Pacific Theater, resulting in improved personnel selection for international operations and enhanced cultural competence among American Special Operations Forces. 6 months after the evaluation, a classified after-action report credited improved psychological assessment procedures with reducing operational failures by 37% and increasing successful international cooperation by 52%. The report, distributed to senior leadership throughout the Department of Defense, recommended expansion of comprehensive evaluation programs to all Special Operations commands. Morrison, now commanding Joint Operations in the South China Sea, reflected on how his encounter with Madison had fundamentally changed his approach to leadership. His team, composed of American, Australian, and Filipino Special Operations personnel, operated with mutual respect that transcended nationality, gender, and unconventional appearances. His previous tendency toward intimidation and assumption-based judgment had been replaced by evidence-based assessment and professional courtesy that enhanced team effectiveness. Rodriguez found herself training female Special Operations candidates from allied nations, drawing on her experience learning to overcome competitive instincts that undermine team cohesion. Her transformation from social dominance to inclusive leadership made her an effective mentor for personnel from cultures where gender integration in military operations required sensitive navigation. Thompson's technical coordination expertise led to his selection for the Advanced Military Technology Integration Board, where his ability to evaluate capability over appearance helped identify innovative solutions from unexpected sources. His experience learning to question initial assumptions made him particularly effective at recognizing breakthrough technologies from non-traditional developers. Hayes commanded the Pacific Theater Special Operations Coordination Center, where his emphasis on thorough evaluation before action became standard operating procedure. His leadership style, fundamentally altered by his encounter with Madison, influenced command decisions throughout the Pacific Fleet and earned recognition for improved operational effectiveness. Garcia served as Chief of Staff for Special Operations Personnel Development, where his veteran instincts and professional judgment shaped training programs for thousands of Special Operations candidates. His ability to recognize potential beneath unconventional appearances influenced selection procedures that identified previously overlooked talent. Carter directed the Multinational Operations Security Board, where his protocols enabled effective cooperation while protecting sensitive American capabilities. His security frameworks facilitated international operations that would have been impossible under previous procedures that prioritized protection over cooperation. Williams, now Lieutenant Williams, and serving as Cultural Liaison Officer for Pacific Theater Operations, utilized his integrity and independence to facilitate cooperation between American forces and Allied personnel, whose operational methods challenged traditional assumptions. His ability to maintain professional standards despite peer pressure made him effective at navigating complex international relationships. The broader implications of Madison's evaluation extended beyond individual career development. Military training facilities throughout the Pacific Theater implemented scenario-based assessment programs that tested psychological resilience under conditions where standard assumptions might prove incorrect. Allied military forces requested access to American evaluation methodologies, leading to enhanced cooperation and shared training programs that improved overall international special operations effectiveness. The cultural competence developed through these programs contributed to successful operations that required unprecedented coordination between diverse military organizations. 1 year after the evaluation, Morrison received secure communication from Madison while commanding joint operations near the Philippine Sea. The message contained operational intelligence that proved critical for mission success. Along with a brief personal note, "Your professional growth has been noted. Continue demonstrating that real leadership serves others rather than dominating them." Rodriguez encountered Madison during a multinational training exercise in Singapore, where Madison served as Senior Evaluation Officer for integrated team exercises. Madison's assessment of Rodriguez's improved team integration capabilities led to her selection for advanced leadership training with British Special Air Service personnel. Thompson was surprised to discover Madison serving as technical consultant during Allied equipment trials in Australia, where her expertise in military systems architecture exceeded that of most technical specialists from participating nations. Her recognition of his improved independent judgment led to his selection for the International Military Technology Advisory Board. Hayes found Madison listed as Senior Advisor for Strategic Planning when he attended a classified briefing at Pacific Fleet Headquarters, where her psychological assessment expertise informed personnel selection for the most sensitive operations in the Pacific Theater. Garcia worked directly with Madison during senior leadership development exercises, where her evaluation methodologies influenced training programs that prepared special operations leaders for complex international environments requiring cultural competence and psychological resilience. Carter collaborated with Madison on security protocol development for multinational operations, where her understanding of specialized clearance requirements helped create frameworks that enabled international cooperation while maintaining appropriate protection for classified information. Williams served under Madison's operational command during a classified cultural liaison mission that required coordination between American Special Operations Forces and allied personnel from 12 different nations, where his demonstrated integrity proved essential for mission success. The psychological assessment techniques Madison had pioneered influenced special operations training throughout NATO alliance countries, resulting in improved personnel selection and enhanced operational effectiveness for international cooperation missions. 2 years after the evaluation, the Pacific Theater Special Operations Command published a comprehensive study documenting the improved effectiveness achieved through implementation of comprehensive psychological assessment programs. The study credited Madison's evaluation methodology with fundamental improvements in personnel selection, cultural competence, and operational success rates. The study's conclusions influenced Department of Defense policy regarding personnel evaluation for special operations assignments, leading to mandatory psychological resilience assessment for all candidates seeking elite operational positions. Senior military leadership throughout the Pacific Theater recognized that Madison's evaluation had identified assessment methods that could distinguish between personnel who would maintain effectiveness under pressure and those whose judgment might be compromised by stress, assumptions, or group dynamics. The practical implications extended beyond military effectiveness to influence diplomatic relationships with allied nations whose special operations personnel worked alongside American forces in increasingly complex international operations. 5 years after Madison's evaluation, Morrison commanded the Joint Special Operations Training Center, where her assessment methods were taught to senior officers from 14 allied nations. His leadership style, fundamentally transformed by his encounter with Madison, influenced thousands of special operations personnel throughout their careers. Rodriguez directed the International Military Gender Integration Program, where her experience overcoming competitive instincts and social dominance behaviors helped establish training standards that enabled effective cooperation in multinational operations involving diverse personnel. Thompson served as Director of Allied Technology Integration, where his ability to evaluate capability over appearance contributed to breakthrough innovations that enhanced special operations effectiveness throughout the Pacific Theater Alliance structure. Hayes commanded Pacific Theater Special Operations, where his emphasis on evidence-based assessment before action became doctrine that influenced operational planning throughout the American military and allied forces. Garcia directed the Global Special Operations Leadership Institute, where his professional judgment and veteran instincts shaped training for senior officers from allied nations throughout the Pacific Theater and beyond. Carter established the Multinational Operations Security Directorate, where his protocols enabled cooperation between allied forces while protecting each nation's classified capabilities through appropriate information-sharing frameworks. Williams served as Senior Cultural Advisor for Pacific Theater Operations, where his integrity and independence facilitated cooperation between diverse international forces whose cultural approaches required sensitive navigation. The legacy of Madison's evaluation continued expanding as personnel who had experienced it assumed senior leadership positions throughout the Pacific Theater Alliance structure, carrying with them lessons about professional competence, cultural awareness, and evidence-based judgment. Training facilities throughout the Pacific Theater implemented evaluation scenarios based on Madison's methodology, ensuring that future special operations personnel would be assessed for psychological resilience, cultural competence, and ability to maintain effectiveness when confronting challenges to standard assumptions. The comprehensive transformation of special operations culture that began with Madison's evaluation of individual responses to unexpected challenges had evolved into institutional changes that influenced military effectiveness, international cooperation, and personnel development throughout the Pacific Theater Alliance structure. As the sun set over the Coronado Naval Special Warfare Command Center on the 5th anniversary of Madison's evaluation, the facility operated with enhanced understanding that professional competence required continuous assessment, cultural awareness demanded ongoing development, and effective leadership served others rather than dominating them. The personnel who had participated in Madison's original evaluation now served throughout the Pacific Theater in positions of increased responsibility, carrying forward lessons about character, judgment, and professional competence that would influence military effectiveness for decades to come. Madison's evaluation had concluded years earlier, but its continuing influence on military culture, personnel development, and international cooperation demonstrated that real change began with individual recognition that assumptions could be wrong, initial impressions might mislead, and true strength was demonstrated through professional competence rather than intimidation of those who appeared different. The legacy continued, ensuring that future generations of special operations personnel would be prepared for the complex challenges of international cooperation, cultural competence, competence, and psychological resilience required for the evolving security environment of the Pacific Theater and beyond.